The air in the Grand Conclave chamber was cool and smelled of ozone and alien spices. Ambassador Li Jun sat perfectly still, his hands resting on the smooth, glowing surface of the desk. Across the wide, circular room, Ambassador Gavrik of the Tarkellan hegemony was standing. Gavrik was large, with thick, gray hide and a deep voice that seemed to shake the very chairs. "It is simple," Gavrik said, not to June, but to the other members of the Galaxy Council. "The Cygnus Vale is a zone of Tarkellan interest. Human mining operations are a trespass. They must leave. The resources they have stolen will be paid for as reparations." June took a slow, quiet breath. The Cygnus Vale was an empty patch of space by every standard map. Human telescopes had found rich minerals there only a year ago. The Tarkellans had shown no interest until the humans arrived. A soft chime sounded, and Senior Counselor Elia, a Xylosian with gentle, glowing eyes and skin like tree bark, spoke. "Ambassador Li Jun, the floor is yours for response." June leaned forward slightly, the microphone before him amplifying his calm, even tone. "Thank you, Senior Counselor. Ambassador Gavrik, our surveys show no prior claim on the Vale. We have filed all the correct forms with the Cartography Guild. Our presence is legal and peaceful. There is nothing to trespass upon." Gavrik let out a low, guttural sound that his translator did not bother to interpret. "Legal? You hide behind your papers and your codes. Strength is the only law that matters in the dark between stars. Your little ships are a provocation. The only provocation here is this unjust demand," June replied, his voice still soft. "We are not leaving. We are willing to discuss a shared usage agreement. A fair one." "Shared?" Gavrik scoffed, turning to address the other ambassadors, the insectoid viridians, the aquatic nereids, the avian Cthar. "You see? They have no pride. They would share what is rightfully theirs. This is the herbivore spirit. They are grazers, waiting for a predator to tell them where to stand." A ripple of uncomfortable shifting went through the chamber. The insult was crude, meant to provoke. Li Jun did not react. He simply looked at Gavrik, his face a mask of polite patience. Inside, he felt the familiar, cold weight of the insult settle in his stomach. He did not let it show. Showing was the failure. His chief of security, Kim Yuna, stood against the wall behind him. She was watching everything. Her eyes moved from Gavrik's aggressive posture to the hesitant faces of the council, then back to June. She saw the absolute stillness in his shoulders. She knew what that stillness cost. "The galaxy does not need more predators, Ambassador Gavrik," June said. "It needs more builders. We are here to build, not to fight over scraps." "You are here because we allow it," Gavrik shot back, stepping closer to the human delegation section. "Your building is a nuisance. Your peace is a weakness. The hegemony does not recognize it." The session continued like this for another hour. Gavrik made threats. June offered reasoned, logical counter-arguments. The council, bound by thousands of years of strict pacifist tradition, did nothing but listen. They offered mild suggestions for compromise that Gavrik immediately shot down. They were bureaucrats, terrified of conflict, hoping the problem would solve itself through talk. Finally, Elia raised a slender hand. "This session has reached its scheduled end. We will reconvene in 2 cycles to continue these discussions. I urge both delegations to reflect on the path of harmony." Gavrik gave a sharp, dismissive nod and strode from the chamber, his guards following. The other delegates began to float or walk away, many of them avoiding June's eyes. They felt pity for the human, stuck in an unwinnable fight. June stood slowly, smoothing the front of his simple gray suit. Yuna fell into step beside him as they walked out of the chamber and into the quiet, softly lit hallway that led to their embassy quarters. "He is not going to back down," Yuna said, her voice low. Her black hair was tied back in a severe bun, emphasizing the sharpness of her gaze. "No, he is not," June agreed. "He sees our refusal to threaten as a sign that we cannot. It is a fundamental error in his thinking." They entered the human embassy, the door sliding shut behind them with a hushed sound. The air here was different, warmer, with the faint, familiar scent of green tea and clean metal. It was a small piece of Earth in the vast, cold station. Yuna went to a console and brought up a data slate. She handed it to June. The provocations are escalating. Our listening posts have detected Tarkellan scout ships moving closer to our Veil operations. The Council won't intervene. They are too afraid of starting a war. June took the slate. He scrolled through the reports. Ship signatures, timestamps, trajectories. It was a clear, deliberate testing of their borders. A slow, steady pressure. He placed the slate on his desk. They see the friendly face, he said, almost to himself. They see the calm. They think it is all we are. He walked to the large observation window that looked out onto the star-dusted blackness of space. The Galactic Council's home star burned a steady, bright blue in the distance. A storm is only dangerous when it breaks, Yuna, he said, his reflection staring back at him from the transparent metal. They've never seen our weather. They do not know what we had to become to survive our world. They think our friendliness is our only nature. Yuna nodded, her expression grim. She knew. She was one of the few who did. The galaxy believed humanity was peaceful because they were harmless. They were wrong. Humanity was peaceful because it was the hardest, most disciplined choice they made every single day. It was a wall they built against the thing they kept locked deep inside. June turned from the window. The patient, gentle diplomat was back. Prepare a message for Earth. Standard encryption. Inform them that the Tarkellan posture is becoming actively hostile. The Council is neutralized. They should be ready. Ready for what, sir? Yuna asked. Though she knew the answer, June's lips formed a thin, hard line. For the moment they force us to stop being friendly. The silence in the human embassy was broken only by the soft hum of the life support systems. Lee June sat at his desk. The data slate Yuna had given him glowing faintly. The information was troubling. Tarkellan scout ships, dancing on the edge of the Cygnus Veil, pushing the limits. It was a game of chicken, and Gavrik believed the humans would always swerve first. 2 cycles passed without a formal council session. The station was a web of whispers. June attended minor committee meetings on trade and cultural exchange. He was always polite, always calm. He discussed art with the Xylosians and agricultural techniques with the Viridians. He was the model of a peaceful, integrated species. But the pressure was building. Yuna's security reports grew more frequent. A human supply freighter, the Odyssey's song, had reported a Tarkellan destroyer shadowing its course for 6 hours, its weapon ports ominously open. The freighter's captain had held his nerve and his course. The destroyer had eventually veered away. They are testing our reaction, Yuna said, standing before June's desk. They want to see us flinch, to show fear. They will not see it, June replied, his voice even. He was reviewing a proposal for a joint science outpost. Ensure the Odyssey's song crew is commended for their discipline. They did exactly what was required. Nothing. Yuna nodded, but her jaw was tight. The crew was frightened, sir. It is one thing to talk about diplomacy. It is another to have a warship painted on your hull. I know, June said, finally looking up. His eyes were dark, serious. But fear is the trigger. We cannot be the ones to pull it. The next day, the formal session on the Cygnus Veil reconvened. The atmosphere in the Grand Conclave Chamber was even colder than before. Gavrik was already in his seat, a look of smug satisfaction on his broad face. June took his place, feeling the weight of every alien gaze. Senior Counselor Elia began the proceedings. Ambassadors, we resume our discussion on the Cygnus Veil. The chair recognizes the Tarkellan hegemony. Gavrik stood, but he did not speak immediately. He tapped a command into his console. A large holographic image flickered to life above the center of the chamber. It showed a star chart of the Cygnus Veil. We do not come to talk today, Gavrik announced, his voice booming. We come to show you the truth of human aggression. A red dot appeared on the chart, labeled TSS Vengeance. A smaller, blue dot, labeled CSS Kepler, appeared nearby. This is the record from one of our patrol vessels, Gavrik continued. The human survey ship Kepler was operating in a zone we had declared for military exercises. The Vengeance approached to escort it from the area. The Kepler responded by powering its weapons and making a dangerous maneuver, attempting to ram our ship. June felt a chill that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. It was a lie, a complete fabrication. The Kepler was an unarmed geology vessel. Its captain was a 60-year-old man who collected alien seashells. Elia's gentle glow seemed to flicker with concern. This is a serious allegation, Ambassador. Do you have visual confirmation? We do, Gavrik said. Another tap. The hologram shifted to a grainy, shaky video, shot from the perspective of the Tarkellan ship. It showed the blocky shape of the Kepler. Suddenly, the ship's engines flared brightly, and it lunged toward the camera. The video ended abruptly. A wave of murmurs went through the chamber. The visual was convincing, if you did not know the Kepler's engine specs were incapable of such a burst. June stood. His heart was a steady, heavy drum in his chest. Senior Counselor, that recording is a falsification. The CSS Kepler is a Class 3 surveyor. Its engine output cannot exceed 0.15 terajoules. The acceleration shown in that video would require at least 0.9. I submit the Kepler's public technical registry to the record. Gavrik waved a dismissive hand. More papers. You hide behind your numbers. My crew saw what they saw. The intent was clear. This was an act of war. It was an act of fiction, June replied, his voice hardening just a fraction. He kept his eyes locked on Elia. Senior Counselor, I must formally protest this blatant misinformation. It is a provocation designed to justify a pre-planned Tarkellan action. The only action we seek is the security of our borders. Gavrik roared, slamming a fist on his console. The sound echoed in the quiet chamber. You send your weak, little ships to poke and prod, and when you are caught, you cry lie. This is the behavior of a cowardly species. The insult hung in the air. June took a slow breath. He could feel the cold weight in his stomach again, growing heavier. He could see the doubt on the faces of the council. The video, however fake, was a powerful image. His technical data was just more words. Elia looked pained. This discrepancy is troubling. The council cannot make a determination based on conflicting data. We will open an investigation. It may take several cycles to analyze the engine signatures and verify the authenticity of the recording. June felt a sinking feeling. Several cycles. It was exactly what Gavrik wanted. Time and uncertainty. With respect, Senior Counselor, June said, his tone measured but firm. An investigation while the Kepler and her crew are under this cloud is an injustice. They are innocent. This is a tactic to legitimize aggression. Aggression? Gavrik laughed. A harsh, ugly sound. You speak of aggression? Look at you. You stand there, offering nothing but your hurt feelings. Where is your pride? If one of my ships was accused, I would have already seized it back by force. But you just talk. You are all talk. He looked around the room, his gaze challenging every other delegate. You see? This is what I mean. They have no fire, no spirit. They are empty. They will let their people be slandered, their ships be threatened, and they will do nothing but file another paper. They are not a power. They are a paperwork empire. June stood silently, absorbing the venom. He saw the Viridian ambassador look away. He saw the Nereids exchange a worried glance. They believed Gavrik. Not his facts, but his core argument. They saw June's restraint as weakness. The council urges calm, Elia said, her voice weary. We will investigate. Until then, we implore both parties to avoid any further incidents. The session was adjourned. June stood motionless as the other delegates filed out. Gavrik strode past the human desk, not even looking at him, a victor leaving the field. Back in the embassy, the air was thick with frustration. Una was pacing. They are going to get away with it, she said, her voice tight. They present a fake video, and the council's response is to form a committee. They are giving him permission to do whatever he wants next. June was standing by the observation window again. The stars outside seemed very cold, very far away. They are afraid, Yuna, he said quietly. They have built a civilization on the idea that talk always wins. They have forgotten that some beings only understand one language. They think our refusal to speak it is because we do not know the words. He turned to face her. His calm was still there, but it was different now. It was the calm of deep, still water over a great depth. He called us empty, June said. He does not understand. The cup is most dangerous when it is full, but not overflowing. He is trying to make us spill. We must not. And if he stops trying to make us spill? Yuna asked, stopping her pace. What if he just decides to smash the cup? June's eyes met hers. In their dark depths, she saw something she rarely saw. Not anger, not fear. It was a cold, absolute certainty. Then, he said, his voice barely a whisper, he will finally learn what it is filled with. The investigation into the Kepler incident stretched on. Cycles turned into a full standard week. The council station was a tense, quiet place. Lee Jun went about his duties, but the polite smiles from other delegates were now tinged with pity. They saw a man fighting a tide with a cup. Kim Yuna's reports grew darker. The Tarkellan scout ships were no longer just dancing on the edge of the veil. They were making short, aggressive jumps into clearly marked human survey lanes. The captains of the human ships were reporting a constant, low-level dread. It was like being stalked by a large predator that was not yet hungry, but was curious. June sent another formal protest to the council. He received a polite, automated reply acknowledging receipt. No action was taken. The message was clear. The Galaxy Council would not intervene in a dispute until after the first shot was fired. And by then, it would be too late. The breaking point came on a day that started like any other. June was in his office, reviewing a tedious proposal for standardizing deep space communication protocols. Yuna was across the room, monitoring the security feeds. An alert chimed, soft but urgent. It was a Priority 1 message from Earth Central Command. Yuna opened it, her face immediately going pale. Sir, she said, her voice strangely flat. You need to see this. June looked up. He saw the look in her eyes and felt the cold weight in his stomach solidify into a block of ice. He walked to her console. The message was not text. It was a video broadcast. It had a Tarkellan origin marker and was being transmitted on an open channel, meant for everyone to see. The video was sharp and clear. It showed the interior of a ship's cargo bay. The walls were curved, gray metal. In the center, lined up on their knees, were 8 people in standard human surveyor jumpsuits. Their hands were bound behind their backs. Their faces were bruised and bloody. One was a young woman who could not have been more than 25. She was trembling, her eyes wide with terror. Standing behind them were 2 hulking Tarkellan warriors, their hideous grins visible even through their combat helmets. A familiar, booming voice filled the room. Gavrick's voice. Members of the Galaxy Council, the voice said, behold the consequence of human aggression. The crew of the survey ship Stargazer, caught red-handed attempting to sabotage a Tarkellan navigation beacon. They resisted arrest. This is the result. June's breath caught in his throat. The Stargazer. It was a sister ship to the Kepler. Unarmed. A science vessel. On the screen, Gavrick himself walked into view. He stood before the kneeling crew, a large, brutal-looking energy pistol in his hand. The human diplomat speaks of peace and law, Gavrick sneered directly into the camera. But his people make war in the shadows. They are liars. And for liars, there is only one justice. He raised the pistol. The young woman on the screen closed her eyes, a tear tracing a clean line through the grime on her cheek. June's hands clenched into fists at his sides. His knuckles were white. The calm on his face was gone, replaced by a terrifying stillness. The sound of the energy pistol was a sharp, sizzling crack. The screen went black for a second, then returned to the starfield of the broadcast channel. The message was over. The office was utterly silent. June could hear the blood pounding in his ears. He could feel Yuna's eyes on him, waiting. The entire galaxy had just witnessed an execution, a murder, and the council was watching too. He turned and walked out of the office without a word. Yuna followed. They moved through the quiet halls of the embassy, their footsteps echoing. They did not speak. There was nothing to say. They went straight to the Grand Conclave chamber. An emergency session had already been called. The room was packed. Every delegate was present. The air was thick with shock and fear. Gavrik was in his seat, looking utterly unconcerned. He was studying the claws on one of his hands as if bored. Senior Counselor Elia looked ancient and frail. Her glow was dim. "Ambassador Gavrik," she began, her voice trembling. "The transmission we have all seen. This is a most serious matter. The Council condemns this act of violence in the strongest possible terms." Gavrik looked up. "The Council condemns? The Council does nothing but condemn. We took action. We delivered justice. The humans are the aggressors. We have merely pruned a dangerous branch." Elia turned her pained gaze to Li Jun. "Ambassador Li Jun, the floor is yours." Jun stood. The room fell into a dead silence. All eyes were on him. They expected tears. They expected rage. They expected a desperate plea for justice. They saw none of those things. He looked not at Gavrik, but at Elia and the assembled council. His face was a mask of cold, hard stone. His voice, when he spoke, was low and clear, cutting through the room like a knife. "You have seen the truth now," he said. "Not a fake video, not a lie. You have seen the murder of innocent, unarmed people. My people." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "You have chosen not to see the provocations. You have chosen not to believe the evidence. You have hidden behind your procedures and your investigations while a bully prepared his knife. You stood by and did nothing." He looked at each of the key council members in turn, the Viridian, the Nereid, the Cthar. They flinched under his gaze. "You told us to be calm. You told us to forgive. You asked us to turn the other cheek because you believed we had no other option. You believed that our peace was your peace. Peace of weakness. A peace of fear." He finally turned his eyes to Gavrik. The Tarkellan ambassador met his gaze, a smirk playing on his lips, confident in the human's powerlessness. "You have chosen not to see," June repeated, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper that every microphone picked up. "You have chosen not to act. The responsibility for what comes next is therefore yours." He did not yell. He did not threaten. He simply stated a fact. Then he turned his back on the entire Galaxy Council. He walked away from the speaking podium. He walked past the stunned, silent delegates. Kim Yuna fell into step beside him, her back straight, her face a mirror of his cold resolve. The doors to the chamber slid open and then closed behind them, leaving a room full of beings who were, for the first time, feeling a new and frightening emotion. It was not pity for the humans. It was the first cold trickle of fear. The silence in the human embassy was heavier than before. It was the silence after a storm has passed, but everyone knows a bigger one is coming. Li Jun stood by the observation window, his hands clasped behind his back. He was not looking at the stars. He was looking at his own reflection, a ghost superimposed over the darkness. Kim Yuna finished sealing a small case. It contained data drives, nothing physical. Everything important was already in their heads. "The shuttle is prepped and waiting in Bay 4, she said, her voice calm and professional. "The Council has granted our request for departure. They are eager to see us go." June gave a single, slow nod. "They think removing the problem will make it disappear. They are wrong." He turned from the window. The calm diplomat was gone. In his place was a man focused on a single, grim purpose. His movements were efficient without wasted energy. He picked up nothing from his desk. There were no personal items. The embassy was a shell. They walked through the empty halls for the last time. The journey to the shuttle bay was quiet. The station's automated systems ignored them. No other delegates crossed their path. It was as if they were already ghosts. Bay 4 was a small, private docking area. Their shuttle, the Morning Star, sat waiting. It was a sleek, unarmed vessel, built for comfort and speed, not for fighting. Its hatch was open, a warm light spilling out. They were 10 steps from the hatch when the bay's main doors hissed open behind them. June and Una stopped. They turned slowly. Ambassador Gavrik stood there, flanked by 4 of his largest warriors. They were not in dress uniform. They wore black combat armor, and they carried heavy, menacing-looking pulse rifles. The warriors fanned out, blocking the exit. Gavrik took a few steps forward, a wide, triumphant smile on his face. The bay doors slid shut, sealing them in. "Leaving so soon, Ambassador?" Gavrik's voice echoed in the large, empty space. "The party is just getting started." June did not move. "The council has approved our departure, Gavrik. Step aside." "The council," Gavrik laughed. "The council is not here. They are in their chamber, wringing their hands. They have no power here. Only strength has power." He gestured with his head, and the 4 warriors began to advance, their weapons raised. They moved to surround June and Una. "You made a very pretty speech," Gavrik said, walking closer. "All that talk of responsibility. Very dramatic. But now the friendly face is gone, little human. Now you will learn the price of defiance." The warriors were close now. One of them reached for June's arm. June did not look at the warrior. His eyes were locked on Gavrik. He gave a single, almost imperceptible nod to Una. Una's hand moved to her wrist. She tapped a small device there. A low hum filled the bay. A shimmering, blue energy field snapped into existence over the main doors and the secondary hatches. The sound of the station outside vanished. They were cut off, contained. Gavrik looked around, confused for a moment. Then he smirked. "A containment field? To keep us out? You are sealing your own tomb." June finally moved. He took one step forward. It was not a step of fear or retreat. It was the step of a man entering a stage. "You attacked a diplomat," June said, his voice changing. The soft, reasonable tone was gone. It was now a low, cold, and focused rumble. It was the voice from the bottom of a deep, dark well. "You saw a friendly face. You didn't know that face was a cage." Gavrik's smirk faltered. He took an involuntary step back. The change was not physical. June had not grown or transformed, but something had shifted. The patient, gentle mask was gone. What was left was pure, undiluted intensity. The coiled potential Una knew so well was now uncoiling. The warrior who had reached for June grabbed his shoulder. What happened next was too fast to clearly see. June's arm moved. It was not a punch or a block. It was a precise, twisting motion. There was a loud, wet crack, like a thick branch snapping. The Tarkellan warrior screamed, a high-pitched sound of shock and agony, as his arm bent at a horrible, impossible angle. June had not just broken the bone. He had dislocated the entire limb from the socket. The warrior dropped his rifle and stumbled back, clutching his useless arm. The other 3 warriors froze for a split second, stunned. It was all the time June needed. He moved again. This was not the fighting style of the Tarkellans, which was all about brute force and loud roars. This was silence and economy. It was the work of a surgeon in a battlefield. He flowed toward the second warrior. His hand, fingers held stiff and tight, shot out like a piston. It struck the warrior in the throat, not the front, but the side, hitting a cluster of nerves. The warrior gagged, his eyes rolling back as he collapsed, paralyzed and choking. The third warrior fired his pulse rifle. A blast of blue energy sizzled through the air. June was not there. He had already dropped low, his leg sweeping out in a vicious arc, connected with the warrior's knee. The sound was another sickening crack. The warrior roared in pain and fell. The fourth warrior lunged, trying to tackle June to the ground. June met the charge. He did not try to stop it. He redirected it. Using the warrior's own momentum, he spun, pulling the massive alien over his hip and slamming him headfirst into the hard metal floor with a terrible, final thud. The warrior did not move again. It had taken less than 10 seconds. Gavrik stood frozen, his mouth hanging open. His eyes were wide with a terror he had never felt before. This was not a fight. This was a dismantling. The humans were not weak. They were contained. And he had just broken the container. June stood amidst the groaning, broken bodies of his guards. He was not even breathing heavily. He turned his head and looked at Gavrik. His eyes were no longer human. They were the eyes of a predator that had just remembered what it was. He began to walk toward the Tarkellan ambassador. Gavrik fumbled for the pistol at his hip. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely grip it. June did not hurry. Each step was measured, deliberate. The sound of his shoes on the deck plating was the only sound in the sealed bay. "You wanted to see what makes humanity dangerous?" June asked, his voice still that low, chilling rumble. "Look." Gavrik finally managed to draw his pistol. The large, clumsy weapon felt alien and useless in his trembling hand. He pointed it at the approaching human, but the sight wavered wildly. Li Jun did not change his pace. He did not flinch. He just kept walking, his eyes locked on Gavrik's. "Stay back!" Gavrik shouted, his voice cracking with a fear he had never known. This was not the fear of battle, where an enemy might be stronger or luckier. This was the primal fear of prey that has just understood its place in the food chain. June did not stop. He was now only a few steps away. Gavrik pulled the trigger that a blast of blue energy shot out, sizzling through the air where June's head had been a fraction of a second before. June had simply moved his head to the side, a minimal, efficient motion. He had known the shot was coming. He had read it in the twitch of Gavrik's finger, the widening of his eyes. Before Gavrik could fire again, June's hand shot out. It was not a grab or a punch. It was a sharp, precise strike to Gavrik's wrist. There was a crunch of bone and cartilage. Gavrik screamed as a bolt of white-hot pain shot up his arm. The pistol clattered to the floor. June did not pause. His other hand came up, his fingers forming a rigid point. He drove it into a specific spot just below Gavrik's ribcage. It was not meant to cause blunt trauma, but to shock a cluster of nerves. Gavrik's breath exploded from his lungs in a choked gasp. His massive body convulsed, his legs buckling. He fell to his knees, clutching his stomach, unable to draw air. He was helpless. He looked up, his vision blurry with pain and terror. Li Jun stood over him, looking down. There was no anger on his face. No hatred. There was only a cold, analytical focus. It was the most terrifying thing Gavrik had ever seen. This was not a crime of passion. It was a procedure. "Please," Gavrik wheezed, the word a ragged, unfamiliar sound from his mouth. He was begging. He, a Tarkellan battlemaster, was begging for his life. June leaned down, his face close to Gavrik's. He did not smell of sweat or rage. He smelled of nothing. "You broadcast the deaths of my people to the entire galaxy," June whispered, his voice so calm it was worse than any scream. "You thought it was a show of strength. It was a confession of your own weakness. You are a bully who only knows how to break things that cannot break you back." Gavrik could only stare, paralyzed by the pain and the truth in those words. "You wanted to know why we are peaceful?" June continued, his eyes boring into Gavrik's soul. "It is because we remember what we were. We built our civilization on the bones of monsters far more terrifying than you. We had to become the most dangerous thing on our planet so that we could learn to never be that thing again. The calm you mocked is our greatest victory, and you just declared war on it." He straightened up, looking down at the broken ambassador. "I am not going to kill you," June said. A flicker of hope sparked in Gavrik's eyes. June extinguished it with his next words. "That would be a mercy. It would also be a lie. It would let your people believe you fell in a glorious battle. There was no battle here." He gestured to the moaning, broken forms of the warriors around them. This was a lesson. He leaned in close one final time, his voice dropping to a whisper that felt like ice in Gavrik's ear. "Go back to your ship. Tell your hegemony what you saw. Tell them the friendly face is an offer of peace. It is a choice we make every day. Attack it again and we will not send a diplomat." We will send soldiers. Soldiers who do not have a switch to turn it off. The implication hung in the air, more terrifying than any direct threat. The idea that this controlled fury was a restrained version of humanity. The idea that there were humans who lived in this state permanently. June turned his back on Gavrik. He walked over to the shuttle's hatch where Kim Yuna stood waiting. She had not moved during the entire confrontation. Her face was calm, her weapon holstered. She had known her role was containment, not combat. She had known he would not need help. She looked at Gavrik, kneeling broken and pathetic on the floor, then back at June. She gave a single, respectful nod. June's breathing was still even. The cold focus in his eyes was slowly receding, like a tide pulling back from a savage shore. He paused at the hatch, his hand on the frame. He took one last, long breath, and when he exhaled, the last of the storm was gone. The mask was not back in place, not yet, but the man who wore it was returning. He stepped into the shuttle without looking back. Yuna followed him, tapping her wrist device again. The blue containment field vanished. The hatch of the Morning Star sealed with a soft hiss. A moment later, its engines whined to life, a clean, bright sound in the bay. It lifted smoothly from the deck, turned, and glided out through the magnetic field into the open space beyond. Gavrik was left alone in the bay, kneeling in the silence, surrounded by the proof of his catastrophic error. The pain in his body was nothing compared to the cold, absolute dread now freezing his heart. He had not been defeated. He had been educated, and the lesson would haunt his species for generations. The grand conclave chamber was silent. The news had spread through the station like a virus. The Tarkellan shuttle had departed an hour ago, carrying a broken ambassador and his shattered guards. No one had seen them leave. They had simply gone, their silence louder than any threat. Now, Li Jun stood before the council once more. He was alone. Kim Yuna waited outside the chamber doors. He wore a simple, clean suit. His hands were steady at his sides. His face was calm, but it was a different calm. Before, it had been the calm of deep water. Now, it was the calm of a mountain after an avalanche. The violence was over, and the landscape was forever changed. Every seat was filled. Every eye was on him. The air was thick with a new emotion. Awe, mixed with a healthy, chilling dose of fear. Senior Counselor Elia looked ancient. The events had carved new lines into her bark-like skin. Her voice was a whisper. Ambassador Li Jun, the council recognizes you. Jun gave a small, polite bow. The gesture was so normal, so civilized, that it seemed to clash with the knowledge everyone now held. Senior Counselor, honored delegates. He began, his voice soft, but it carried to every corner of the silent room. I come before you not to apologize, but to explain. You have witnessed a truth you were not prepared to see. He looked around the room, meeting the gaze of the Viridians, the Nereids, the Cthar. They did not look away this time. You saw the murder of my people. You saw the result of unchecked aggression. And then, in that docking bay, you saw the response. He paused. You saw what we are. A shiver went through the assembly. Elia found her voice. Ambassador, we did not know. Your species. You contain such violence. Such fury. June nodded. Yes, we do. But you are mistaken about its nature. You are a species of consistency. Your nature is fixed. You are, by your biology, peaceful. You cannot be otherwise. It is a beautiful thing. He placed his hands on the podium, leaning forward slightly. But humanity is different. Our world was not kind. It was a world of ice ages and predators, of volcanoes and famine. To survive, we did not just build tools. We built a cage. Inside that cage, we placed the most efficient, adaptive, and ruthless predator our world had ever known. Ourselves. He let the words sink in. The friendly face, the patience, the diplomacy. That is not a trick. It is not a lie. It is the lock on the cage. It is the choice we make every single morning when we wake up. It is the hardest thing we do. We choose to be builders. We choose to be friends. We choose peace, Not because we are incapable of war, but because we are all too capable of it. He looked toward the door, as if he could see the stars beyond. The Tarkellans thought our friendliness was weakness. You now look at me and think it was a deception. You are both wrong. It is a declaration. It is the proof that we are more dangerous than you can possibly imagine, and yet we extend a hand instead of a blade. He turned his gaze back to Elia, his expression earnest, almost pleading. Your peace is a garden, carefully tended and fragile. You thought we were another harmless flower. We are not. We are the gardeners who know how to kill every blight and every pest that would threaten the garden. We have just shown you we can pull a weed. Do not mistake us for the weed. The silence was absolute. The metaphor was clear and terrifying. They had just seen the gardener's work, and it was brutal. The Galaxy Council is a beautiful dream, June continued, his voice softening. We believe in that dream. We want to help you tend this garden. But you must understand the new reality. You can no longer afford the luxury of thinking that all beings share your peaceful nature. Some do not. And for those, you need guardians who understand the darkness, because they have conquered their own. He straightened up, his message delivered. Do not ever make us regret our choice again. Do not force us to be the danger we work so hard to forget. Let our friendly face remain a symbol of hope, not a warning you failed to heed. He did not wait for a response. He did not ask for permission. He had said all he needed to say. He gave one last, small bow to Senior Counselor Elia. Then, Ambassador Li Jun turned and walked away from the podium. He walked down the central aisle of the Grand Conclave Chamber. The delegates from 100 peaceful species watched him go. They did not see a weakling. They did not see a monster. They saw something entirely new and infinitely more complex. They saw a being of immense power who had spent his entire life building walls to contain it, and who had just, for a moment, let them see what was inside. The doors slid open for him and then closed behind him. Kim Yuna was waiting. She fell into step beside him, and they walked down the corridor together, their footsteps echoing in the quiet hall. Inside the chamber, the silence remained. The old way was over. A new understanding had begun. They had learned the price of the human's friendship, and they had learned the terrifying cost of their wrath. The galaxy had just grown much, much larger, and humanity had just become its most unpredictable and most powerful peacekeepers.